you talk a bit about how the vision of your instructors as you came up influenced your own vision for where you wanted to ultimately take Okinawa Kenpo, and where your vision stands right now, where you'd like to see it grow to, and where you'd like to maybe even see martial arts grow to?
Yeah, I think we're all influenced strongly by the environment we grow up in our martial arts, by the environment we learn through. Having had exposure to what I would look at as sort of eclectic-ish and traditional aspects, because the original Jiu-Jitsu Karate wasn't a traditional karate program, and it wasn't and Jiu-Jitsu at that point in time was very, very broken. Like I said, what we did came from Dewey Devers, who his parents were judo players and went around in the vaudeville during the early 30s, and that's where he learned from his mother and father. And we used to refer to this stuff as tricks, not throws. And if you look at old judo or books, though, you'll see the stuff referred to as tricks. But it was a mix of many different things. But it was a strong focus for practical application that always stuck with me throughout. And the jiu-jitsu focus, I think, left me with the total belief that you need to have that to complete your training as a martial artist. What I saw as I got into the traditional, because my original goal was, the more traditional, if I can get into a traditional system, that somehow that would make me a better martial artist. Well, yes and no. Again, not necessarily. You have to have that access to the traditional system, but then you have to study it and use it and understand it and make it work. Otherwise, it's no different than anything else. Just because your name, I studied this, doesn't mean that you are getting the benefits out of that. Going back to Trias' thing of good karate, bad karate. So that was a strong focus. And I've always continued to do that, so my self-defense has always been influenced heavily by the jitsu side. And from a practicality, I think that's bared out over the years, and especially in our legal environment today. Karate can be very effective as a self-defense, but it's like a light switch. It's on and off. The jiu-jitsu gives you the opportunity, like a dimmer, to adjust your response as appropriate to the threat. Which, since most of us aren't in a life or death situation in our work or home place, thankfully, but we can be in situations of bullies, or someone being obnoxious or threatening, or someone drunk and trying to attack or whatever, that you need to be able to defend yourself, but in a manner that you're not placing yourself at risk from a legal point of view. So I think that's a good mix there. Plus the ground fight. Traditional karate, I think, had a vulnerability in that practitioners only practice standing up. Most fights inevitably end up on the ground. And so if you don't have any skills on the ground, I think you're very deficient. Some of the mixed martial arts aspect again shows that, or when the Gracies started to do their UFC stuff, they were ground combat wizards. Okay, and initially they fought some people that just did the standing kicking and punching, and they got smeared. Oh yes, the standing people got a few good kicks and punches in, but if that wasn't sufficient, and generally it wasn't, they went to the ground, they were fish out of water. And so I think that whole side, the reality, full contact stuff, has recognized that there needs to be that full mix. I think one of the things that I gained from USK and Master Trias was the focus on understanding and tearing stuff apart. And if you don't have a strong basics foundation, it doesn't matter how hard you train, how often you train, you're not going to be able to make the stuff work. You know, our kata is just a high-level drill. It's not the end of our training. It's just really the beginning of it. But you have to have your basics, because understanding the basics then allows you to make the connections between all the katas, and you can see how, okay, this concept appears in 15 kata in slightly different ways, and it's being adjusted for the angle position of our opponent, the attack that the opponent's using, but it's a similar concept. And then you'll see that same concept being applied and adjusted with weapons. What that gets down to is ultimately breaking away from all the kata, because the whole purpose of kata is to teach you where you get it into your mind and you don't have to think about it. And if you have that understanding as the foundation of the concepts, as a foundation movement, when you're not thinking about it, you can have this connection. Bang! Everything just flows. Where if you don't have that foundation, the pieces never get connected, and so you end up with maybe being very good with a couple techniques, but you can't connect them. You can't transition, and so when the opponent does something different, or the weight's different, or whatever, you're in a problem, because not everything works at every time. So I think that's the thing that I try to do with our teaching, because of Trias's influence in that. Oda Sensei instilled the love of the kata and the value of keeping it the way it was, so that future generations can have that same opportunity. Today, we see so much of. I'm not even sure you want to call most of what you see as martial arts. I think that would be a disservice to the martial artists. I think it's sort of a dance exercise that spends more time posing and theatrical maneuvers than anything that deals with application. Not that you can't enhance kata and make it, put some hand factor into it to make it come alive and make it entertaining, but it shouldn't be done at the sacrifice of what's correct. In other words, focal points should still be at the correct focal points. You shouldn't be putting focal points and emphasis because that looks good if you pose and stop when they take the pictures. Okay, you don't transition, you don't ki-eye on transitional moves. Okay, ki-eyes are supposed to be your finishing techniques. Things like that.